I've said in the past, and this is somewhat controversial when I talked about conscious politics, that liberals are more evolved than conservatives. And of course, this pisses off a lot of conservatives to say this, but it is nonetheless true. And this World Values Survey data is the proof of it. The trend of societies goes from traditional survival to secular, rational, self-expressive, from conservative to liberal. Conservatives are mostly traditional survival-oriented. Liberals are mostly secular, rationalist, self-expressive oriented. Every generation becomes more liberal. Even if you're a conservative today, you're a liberal by the standard of your ancestors. Notice this. Even the most arch conservatives of today would never support something like slavery, whereas your ancestors would. Without any hesitation, they would support slavery. Why is that? Simply because what conservatism is about preserving the status quo, whatever it happens to be. If it happens to be slavery, that's what you're preserving. But if it happens to be, whatever conservatives want to preserve today, then it's that. Gun rights or whatever. Now, of course, this is all denied by conservatives. That's part of the whole problem. And conservatives will say that this is so biased and unfair to say that conservatives are less evolved than liberals. But look at the data. Look at the historical trends. Look at it in an objective way. Step outside of your ideology and have the courage to admit that maybe your ideology is not equivalent to all other ideologies. Maybe there's a sort of a progression here. And that is, in fact, what you'll find. But of course, that's exactly what you don't want to do as a conservative. You don't want to consider other perspectives. You don't want to consider the possibility that there might be better ways of doing things than your current ideology because you're attached to it and you're protecting and defending it out of a sense of insecurity and fear. Notice that. Today's liberal is also tomorrow's conservative. So also, if you're a liberal, don't get cocky. Because you might say, oh, Leo, I'm so liberal. Yeah, you're liberal now, but when you turn 60 years old, relative to new generations, you're going to look like a old conservative fart. And yet you're still going to cling to power and think that you're right. You see? Today's conservatives are yesterday's liberals. Humans 100 years from now will be extremely, extremely liberal by even today's most liberal standards. Today's liberals will be uncomfortable with the crazy liberal ideas of humans 100 years from now. But luckily, they'll be dead 100 years from now. So it won't be a problem. Which is why death is actually a very important component in the progress of mankind. If generations didn't die out but lived forever, this would be very problematic because the whole system would get constipated. Because you got to have a mechanism for flushing out old ideas. People who cling to power attached to old ideologies. But all of this doesn't mean that conservatives are evil or always wrong. Conservatives can still have valid opinions. I'm not saying that liberals are right about everything. Don't get so reductive and simplistic about this. It's just that there's a clear trend, and we want to be conscious of what this trend is. The arc of history bends liberal and democratic. You can clearly see that if you study history. The biggest obstacle to liberal democracy is threats to basic survival. This is the classic tug of war between fear and love. Basically, liberalism is more love-oriented, and conservatism is more fear-driven.